let's get into the show, shall we, Cage?
Yeah, man. I'm eating a little lunch over here, so the audience
okay.
gets the benefit of that little lunch action.
Well, you're a busy man. From what I'm hearing from my people that have their ear to the ground, you're kind of an influencer these days. Is this accurate?
No.
You're hanging out with rappers, and is this true? Like, what's going on? What's going on?
I'm an old man, rappers. I don't know about that, but yeah, man. So, have you heard of this? Person, Hoodie Allen? I thought he made.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It was talk of the town when we were in college.
Yeah.
Him, Asher Roth, a few of them kind of popped off.
I mean, obviously, I know who the guy is, but did you know that he was into cards?
Who does he collect? Is he an NFL guy? I could see him being an NFL guy.
NFL. Yeah, I mean, he had some NFL. I think if he had to be lumped in, it's like a one card, one guy. I would say he expressed a lot of love for the Patrick Mahomes stained glass card. He had one in 9, wants a 10, that kind of stuff. So, likes the aesthetics of it. And,
underrated insert, if you ask me.
Cool looking card.
Guys, we're going to have a really fun show today. So we have a lot of topics, limited amount of time. So I want to talk about Cage. We could talk a little bit about Bleecker Street. I want to talk about the Nets-Bucks game. I want to talk about the flash auction MJ sale. There's a Memory Lane Babe Ruth PSA 9 on auction right now, which is super cool. And I want to talk to people who are a little bit worried about prices dropping even further. So we got a really big show ahead. Cage, which one of those topics do you want to start working with first?
I want to do all of them at once.
Okay, let's do it.
Do all of them at once. Just do everyone, no order. Just fly. Actually,
more than likely, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm in a good mood today. So the Babe Ruth, that'll probably be an easy one to tackle, right? That's the one in Memory Lane. I bought from Memory Lane. I like those guys. I bought from them before. They have a cool box when you get a card. Comes like a little Memory Lane wood box case, like a display box. Pretty cool. I bought my Hank Aaron rookie from them and my Yogi Berra rookie. Isn't that card one of the ones from the doctor down in Florida? The one where the collection just came to light. I think the guy just passed away. I'm pretty sure that's part of that collection.
I'm more plugged in with the rappers than the doctors these days. I'm sorry. Sorry, I have no clue.
So I'll tell you, and we'll tie it together. Like I said, all of it talked together. I learned a lot of lessons just from my couple of hours at Bleecker trading last night. It's fun to go and kind of listen. I mean, I love telling stories, and obviously I told my share of stories. And when you do this stuff for as long as I have, you get some good stories, and people will listen to them, right? But listening was the key, and watching what people react to, what cards people are like. Oh, look at that, that kind of stuff. I'll tell you the biggest lesson that I learned from last night was a vintage card collector was there. I gotta follow him on Instagram. I gotta go find out what it is because you put vintage card in and it's like half the world is vintage card collector. So I gotta get the right one. But somebody who had been doing cards for a long time and has been in it for a while in different aspects. Worked for Leland's, worked for stuff. If you're listening, by the way, message me so I make sure I get the right vintage card collector. Wife's a lawyer, and he's doing cards. It's great, right? Isn't it nice to have wives who are lawyers, and you can just do cards for a while? It's my goal in life. One, I'd love to be Andrew and hang out in Mexico. Two, I want somebody to pay for my life of luxury being a card person. So, I listen to somebody like that because it's somebody who, like me, has seen ups and downs, but he's seen it without any kind of breaks, right? Without any kind of, craziness. Like there have been ups and downs. And my question for him was, a question I kind of knew the answer to, but the question for him was, over the last 18 months or so, maybe taking off the last few, there was a huge up. And we've seen ups in the hobby. We've seen ups in the markets before. But my question was, have you ever seen anything like this? Because if you have, you can kind of have some guidance, no guarantee, but guidance on what the period after such a run-up would look like. You know what I mean? And he was like, yeah, we've had run-ups, but nothing ever even close to this, which is exactly what I expected to hear because, we've seen unprecedented growth. And besides his talk about, like reasons why, besides his commentary about how, for the last year and change, we've had X.
You cut out, but over the past year, there you go, you're back. But
Yeah,
over the past year, we've had X number of returns. Like I think Rami made a great meme, like
5 things, right? You can spend your money
800%
bleach. You can spend your money on wipes to clean off your groceries. So make sure you bring them into your house. You spend your money on Netflix, maybe Disney Plus. Nothing else because no one's doing anything, right? And now people are doing things, right? And the disposable income is not there, and that was part of it. But the biggest learning lesson was this. This guy goes to a lot of shows. He's all over the place doing, card shows, in-person events, you name it, in Philly and stuff. And he says, guaranteed. He says, what I like to do, we talk about supply and demand. What I like to do is balance it out. Like how many people are approaching me to sell their stuff as opposed to how many people are approaching to buy things. He says, I have my own collection, you name it. And he goes, more out of whack than it's ever been, where the people coming to me to sell their cards, to dump their inventory, to get out of this is so far out of whack with the buying population. You'd like to have it even, and maybe even more buyers than sellers. You know what I mean? You'd like to be able to have that. That shows some health. But if you have
Cage, that's nothing new.
So
I'm going to go a different direction on you.
Please.
I think this is one of the biggest overreactions by human beings we've ever seen in our entire lives. I'm going to go that far. And I'm young, so you've lived a little longer than me.
Fine.
But it's the biggest overreaction I've seen from humans in my entire life. You've seen a market that has gone up 800, 900, 1,000%. A lot of people sent their cards in to get graded. So naturally, you're going to get a supply run when those cards returned. Sure, PSA shut down now, but I got 6 orders back in the last 6 months that I sold to the market, and those were just Kobe rookie cards. There's a ton of Kobe rookie cards, for example. So there's a supply shock, okay, and maybe that 1,000% is really only a 300 or 200% gain, okay, over the last year. Cool, but we're still at 200% gain over the last 12 months. And now there's this panic and angst and lack of confidence in the environment when we have more and more and more buyers coming in. Maybe they're not buying today on June 15th, but that supply to demand, where you want to have more buyers than sellers, that switches in an instant. As soon as card prices go back up, as soon as maybe there's another stimulus plan, as soon as summer's over, maybe it's a culmination of these effects. Here's another thing that's coming down the pipe. Labor inflation is happening. So people are going to be starting making more money. Okay, so they were still making last year's salaries. People are going to start making more money. There's going to be a culmination of factors that happens in the next 12 to 18 months that reverses. And there's going to be way more buyers than sellers.
I disagree.
I just can't believe that.
I think the overreaction, you might be right. It might be a huge overreaction in the world, but I think the overreaction actually took place already. It's not now. It's not what's going on in the market where people are overreacting to a dip or a resetting or a correction or whatever term of art you want to use. I think the overreaction actually happened last year when people saw what happened to prices when things went up. And people saw what happened when you sent things into PSA and got back PSA 10s, you name it. I think the overreaction was everyone overreacting and jumping into grading. And everybody sending in their cards.
Sure.
And now they're shocked that when they're getting them back towards the end of the run, right? Towards the end of the run of the cards, modern, Prism, you name it, that they're not able to turn those cards into what they thought they were. And more importantly, because they were getting in towards the end of the run and overreacting to this spike that was up, because they were getting at the end of the run, they were paying more for raw and more for grading than anybody was 6 months or a year before them. And now the big shock, and it is a human nature thing, right? But the big shock is now you get those in hand, and a 10 is worth less than what you paid for it raw. And you're like, I just got to get rid of this thing. I just got to move this thing.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the overreaction. That happens every single day in the stock market and crypto market, and no one feels sorry for these humans. But for some reason, because I bought something and the market fell as opposed to going up 5%,
I
somehow
compare it to the stock market, right? So and maybe I'll
you have to
move away from
you have to in some ways.
You can't unless you're saying that every stock is adding supply.
No, you can. Cage,
some do.
you can, and I'll explain.
Right? Only people.
I'm not saying that they're exactly the same. Yeah. I'm saying those Venn diagrams where there's a lot of things different, but they overlap in the middle.
Yeah.
I think it's unfair to act like cards, which is an alternate asset class, is 100% different from stocks. It's probably 75% different, but they have 25% overlap.
The big difference is
and it would be foolish not to learn lessons from other markets that you could apply here. And that's literally what I'm seeing in front of my eyes. People selling because of fear. And just 3-4 months ago, they weren't selling because of greed. They were looking 3 months ago. They wanted the highest of high comps.
Yeah,
that's greed.
I know. High comps. But people are also trying to run for the hills now. There's a lot of fear. But I guess
the Jordan that just sold wasn't the highest of high comps. That was a sale out of fear. No right-minded person would flash auction a Jordan.
We should talk about that Jordan, right? And then I'm a Jordan defender.
It's all connected. This episode is planned. I outlined this episode so that it could be valuable for Luka Nation. So I love how it goes into Jordan because it's the same combo.
Yeah, so the Jordan card, the problem with the Jordan is, it's so funny, right? Because, I love Darren Ravel. I think he has some great content out there, right? But if he put a tweet out this morning, about the Jordan, and then one of his comments, of course, responding to people, and he's like, well, if you knew it was going to go down, why didn't you sell it? He's like, I sold out. I liquidated everything in February. If that's true,
that's pretty lame.
I sold everything in February. Is what he wrote in his tweet, right? If that's true, that's a little odd. That means you called the top. I guess maybe it's possible, but it's a little odd. Maybe you called the top.
But here's the thing, right? The scene of the crime type of thing.
Maybe. Maybe he just knows. Maybe he's just that smart, right? So he knew that the peak was going to be in February, and he got out of everything. You never know. But here's the problem, right? There's a lot of agendas, right? There's a lot of I told you so.
That's a pretty tone deaf. That's a pretty tone deaf tweet to send out at a time like this.
And here's why, right? So I'm going to give you guys some real inside baseball here, real inside information. And if you read Darren's tweet thread, there are other people who have said exactly the same thing I did, right? So that card was talked about during the Bleecker trading event, and I want to spend some time talking about Bleecker also, just to give that its due. But it was talking about people like, oh, it's up there. There's one in Golden. There's one here. There's one, and someone did a flash auction, and I was like, I didn't even know about it. And they're like, it's ending tonight. I'm like, oh wow, So let me explain what that is. Someone had this card in their PWCC vault, and you're able to, in addition to list it with them as part of their auction, either their premier auction or their monthly auction that gets press, and people are qualified for those bidding and all that stuff, you're able to just click a button through PWCC and list something from your vault. Done. 7-day auction, you name it, as if you did it through eBay yourself. Right?
I've done this with 5 cards, and all of them have landed 20% below comps, even on bull market. So Kobe rookies, I did this.
So what's funny is the first reaction was, oh, Ken Golden's pumping up the market. So this shows you that Golden's prices are baloney because look, this is a real market. Can I tell you guys something? And listen good. You ready? Do you know what I bid on that card? So it ended for $180,000. I will tell you right now, I bid $222,222.22. That was my bid on the card. So
eBay blocks those bids because for some reason they don't always let everyone bid on those cards.
Correct.
I didn't understand it on my sale either.
So I got an error message in the last 10 seconds of the auction saying eBay takes these actions to protect the platform, whatever. I've been on eBay since the 90s. I have a perfect score on eBay. I'm not gonna be, jobbing somebody. I would have paid.
My play today is the first cashier's check that eBay sent to Cage. I want that signed and
money orders. I was getting
money order. That's what it was. That was sort of
personal check, but you had to wait 2 weeks before I shipped it. So, but here's the fun, right? So I bid, and if you look at that thread, there are a lot of other people who bid and got the same error message. So the person who sold this way, they got hosed. And you guys listening to our podcast, if you happen to be somebody who has a Jordan, or even a Jordan 9, right? If you happen to be somebody, that 180 comp, I'm a defender here. It's a comp. It's sold. It'll eventually probably get paid for because it's in the vault. And, the seller can't really, back out of it. We'll see what happens. It'll probably sell. It'll be a real comp. But to me, you guys now know the inside skinny, that it would have sold for more than that. And I'll give you one better. I met Pull Wax last night at the Bleecker trading event, right? And I had my Jordan 10 with me, right? And at the end, we're all leaving. He grabs the card from me. He gets on a FaceTime. and I hear on the other end saying, "Tell him I'll offer him $250 for it right now. Will he take it?" A $250,000 offer for the card right there. And I said, no, of course, because I don't want to sell it. I just took it. People like to see that kind of stuff. What am I going to leave it in my safe? You do an event, people get to take pictures, people get to see that stuff. And, that's what, to me, that's what this stuff's about, right? But that was a real offer yesterday too. So balance that out when you're doing your middle finger charts and your talking points are cards are falling into the drink. There was a lot to that PWCC flash auction last night. There's more than meets the eye on that comp. And I will tell you right now, if anybody thinks that's a real comp, right? You know my address, you know my Instagram, and you want to sell it at that comp and not lose your PWCC. You want to sell one for $180,000? Please message me. We will have a sale finalized today, right? So just to let you know about the floor on it, all that other fun stuff. That I'm a buyer at that price, and I know there's plenty of other people who are buyers at that price. So I just want to make sure everybody knows there's more to it than that, because we kind of now we're gonna get the whole we're heading back down to earth. We're in the capitulation part of the chart. We're in the fear part of the chart. We're in the normalization. Everybody wants to fit everything into a damn chart. All right, fine. There's a chart, but the difference between this and stocks, man, is even though there's 300 and whatever of these, which is a lot for a card with that price, what stock out there has 300 stocks? That stock that trades once a month? There's none. There's no stock, right? So yes, there's a lot of similarities, but the liquidity in these cards, even one like that Jordan, where it's a high pop card and there's a sale every month. All right, one a month. You don't transact Apple one share a month. You know what I mean? That's just not the way it works. And there are idiosyncrasies that go into these auctions. And by the way, I don't want to sound like a Jordan homer. Those $700,000 sales in February, those are also outliers, right? Like, I would never come on and argue that the card is worth $700,000. Even back then, I thought that was nuts, right? But I also want to make sure I also think it's worth more than 180. And if you just do a quick Twitter search, pull up Darren's thing, you'll see the error message. People screenshotted it. It's not just me that got this. People screenshotted, said, I bid on this. Here's what eBay sent me as a message. So you got to sometimes peel back some of the layers of the onion, even though it makes you cry when you try to fit things into your chart. There's my comment.
I think some assets are ripe for price manipulation, both in the upward trajectory and in the lower trajectory, because there's smart people waiting to dip by. I don't. The hobby just a few years ago was guys in their basements collecting cards. Now you have
guys in our basements.
Nothing.
That's where I have all
nothing
my
at all.
That's where I hang out.
No, nothing at all. But guys in their basements that's like the hobby term. I'm not making fun of everyone. I'm an introvert.
Give me a hard time.
I'm the guy in the basement watching Narcos all day. So anyway, I'm them. But now you have girl influencers in the hobby. Now you have rappers in the hobby. Now you have content creators in the hobby. Now you have athletes in the hobby. Now you have Grant Hill ripping wax on TV. So I'm really confused. Like, I think that we oftentimes when it comes to money, people become very short-sighted. Like, I just picture people checking comps every day versus just taking a bigger picture of what's happening in the world. So sure, prices sometimes don't go up all the time, but I think the state of the hobby, the people in it, like if you were able to count them up, I think we've doubled the amount of participants in the hobby in just the last 12 months. I don't think we've lost as many as we thought.
I'm sure of it 100%. And guys, listen, there's many ways to do this, right? I mean, like, I was trying to trade with people last night. I would have given some cards away. Like, here you go. You're a Met fan. Take this card. Here, Yankees. All right, here's an Ichiro. He played for the Yankees for a little while. Take this. Sometimes it's tough to make. There were some deals made at that Bleecker show last night. And big shout out to the guys over at Bleecker Trading. Really hospitable team. Really cool atmosphere. Almost like lounge-like. They're still building out the retail space. It was a real cool space. In the city. We've missed that in New York, that vibe, that card trading, that in-person stuff, because there hasn't been a card store in a long, long time in New York. So, big shout out to Bleecker Trading. Thanks for, letting me come and hang out. And yeah, you're right. I mean, just that, just a random Tuesday night, there was NFL players, rappers, people from the
What are we talking about? And this is prime summer. This is not when people want to be in New York.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a cool trade that went down last night. One guy had a Jordan auto. and on the other side of it, there was like a Kyler Murray RPA and a Trout RPA, and so I mean it's like legit heavy hitter cards being traded and stuff. So that was pretty cool to see. And yeah, I mean,
I think we're going to see an inverse correlation behind high pop cards like the Luca Prism. I think that could keep going down for months. But I think that we're going to start to see a return to normal with some really, really in-demand cards. I think we're going to start seeing lower supplies of them on the market.
What's a return to normal, though? So here's the deal. Use that Jordan, for example, right? If you go back 57 weeks ago, so slightly more than a year, 57 weeks ago, Heritage had an auction of that Jordan card that ended for $96,000, and people were losing their minds on the internet. Oh my God, we're setting records! It's $96,000, right? So if what you mean, and the folks with the charts. I mean, there are a lot of people who do a very good job with it. Card Ladder does a very good job with.
But charts only show you what happened.
But what's funny about it is, what I like to do with charts is I like to shave off the top and the bottom and look for that midline. Look for that one that's steady. And you do this in data analysis, right? There's always outliers. There's always statistical anomalies. Shh, pretend I'm dumb. But there's always
especially in an inefficient market like cards.
There's always standard deviations. There are always things that are too far from the mean and the median that they are data that should be scrubbed, right? Now, keep in mind, you're never going to scrub $180,000 sale or $700,000. But if you take that Jordan card, or you take the LeBron refractor, which has had also a crazy thing, or the LeBron base that's sitting at like 14 now when it was 40, whatever it was. What I would say to those things are, we're going to see that chart, and I think you're going to see a pick back up. And I think what's going to wind up happening is you can just shave off the tops and the bottoms. And ultimately, you're going to see that nice, steady line up there. The unfortunate part of that is there are a lot of people who got in during that statistical anomaly. There were people who were buying Kobe's and buying LeBron's and buying Michael Jordan, buying those cards in that high.
Cage, we're in an unregulated market. When we look back in 10 years, we're going to realize that was just price manipulation. That's what caused the standard deviation.
Yeah. All right. Well,
a lot of good marketing. It's literally good marketing in the positive or the negative. The sky is falling, run chicken little. You're going to have a collapse in prices.
Ways, right? So I promise to be honest, but I also promise to try with you to be like positive about things. There's a million ways to slice this, right? You can go into it and say, the sky's falling. We're seeing, record low prices. Look at that auction on PWCC. Look how terrible it is. And everything else is bullshit. Or you can say, kudos to Ken Golden. Kudos to PWCC. Kudos to the auction houses that realize they realize that there's more to a sale of a top asset than just clicking a button and letting it run for 7 days on eBay. Because those guys promote their stuff. They do videos. They put out mailers. They send. I still get Heritage Auction House. The books for every one of their auction comes in the mail. It was a couple of hours last night. I'm a bidder on that card. I didn't even know about it. If I didn't go to the Bleecker trading event, I wouldn't even known that card was for sale. Right?
You just said kudos to PWCC though.
But it wasn't PWCC. I'm talking about their own auctions. Right? They publicize their premier auctions. They publicize their stuff. And this person decided to go this route, which was a quicker route and I believe less fees than putting it in another type of thing. But if they would have waited for a premier auction, or if they would have gotten it into the one of the monthly auctions, they would have had the press around it. PWCC sends out emails about their cards. Oh, Jordan ending tonight. Like people would have seen it. You know what I mean? So I take it as there are people doing a good job, and you have to be smart about what you do with your assets too. You got an asset like that, there's a way to sell it and a way not to sell it. And I think, you'll notice that the low end ones are being sold on the way not to sell, So that's my take.
Love it.
I do like to give a lot of credit. Go ahead, please.
You talked about the beautiful memory lane box, right? When you buy a car, they put it in this beautiful box. Okay.
Yep.
And we hop on here as a show. We give plays every day. And if there's one thing that there's just a common thread of complaint, it's not from collectors who have been in this hobby for 15 years. It's mostly people who want to make more money, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. As long as we're aligned with that.
100%.
I'm talking to just you guys then. You're out there, you're unhappy with the prices, you're unhappy with what's going on in the markets. Maybe it's time to start being a little bit more creative in down cycles. Let me give you an example. When Cage and I started this podcast last year, we thought there were a ton of podcasts out there. What would make us unique? Blah, 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 blah. You're in a down market. You don't know necessarily what cards to buy. Start a business. Start a business that's ancillary to the hobby. Okay? That could be something as simple as a company like One of One, who does gift for you. Send them a piece of your son's shoe, an old baseball from his home run or her home run, whatever it is. That's a business right there that doesn't rely on the market going up and down. That's sports cards, gifting. Okay? Let's go a different route. Cage just had the slab shelf on his Come Up With Cage. Slab shelf, simple product. Already integrated with some of the biggest content creators in the game by sending them a really targeted gift. And all it is a display case for cards. Shop Gem Mint. Took a piece of plastic, light, good quality, boom, 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 optimize people's photos. Start thinking in more creative ways. Just because it's a down cycle, just because your guy is with a torn ACL and your PSA 9 Kawhi is now $400, not $600, you're going to sit here whining? Be creative, because there will be a return to mean, and you'll be happy that you put in the work when others were on Instagram complaining all day. That's my play of the day. I'm not bringing an actual card play. I'm telling people to get creative and start to think, how can I add value to the hobby and create a business that people pay for?
It's funny. Our minds must be in the same space, because I'll forget about just.
We live in the same house.
With business. But
kidding.
Be creative with your plays, right? So I'm gonna give credit to someone I think knows very little about sports cards. One of my pals here, who's on Top Shot, right? And I've almost I've said I don't know, what am I gonna do with Top Shot? I'm selling my stuff, Is Top. I asked it to a bunch of people at Bleecker last night, and they're like, yeah, it's dead. If it's not dead, it's on its way to dead. That was pretty much the the consensus of Top Shot.
Cage, we only really have two water temperatures in the house. Either it's dead or it's to the moon. There is nothing in between.
Yeah, pretty much. But you know what he says to me? He goes, listen, my goal is not to take $10,000 and turn it into $200,000, because that happened and I missed it. He says, and anybody who goes in and that's their goal, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to take chances they shouldn't be taking. They're going to do stupid things. But I think if I want to turn 10 into 20 and do it slowly over the course of the next couple of months and do it strategically and actually put some thought into it instead of being lucky.
I'm sorry. I'm cutting Cage off because I'm probably a little more fiery on this episode than most. 10 to 20 is not slowly.
Well,
that's fast.
He's talking about over years.
Right, but that's
not like next week.
Doubling your money?
Yeah, over years.
We're in such a crazy ecosystem that doubling your money over a year is not even a good metric.
A couple of years. So, but I understand what you're saying. But so say 10, 15, whatever it is, right? So, but here's the point of it, right? You can't do that just by a wish and a prayer. You can't do that the way that it was before, where basically you buy anything and it's going to go up, because now most of the stuff you buy is going to go down, right? So, but here was a couple of examples, right? He's like, I woke up this morning and I heard the news about Kawhi. And I heard the news about Chris Paul. So I bought as many of the Series 1 Donovan Mitchells as I could buy. Because I think, with Kawhi injured, Chris Paul out, maybe Donovan Mitchell, now it's probably not going to go down because he's already beaten up. But if he makes it to the Western Finals, I probably can sell those for a couple more bucks. And if he makes it to the Finals, I can sell them for even more couple of bucks. He goes, I got those. They also do challenges. They did this playoff set. The first challenge reward was whoever it was. He goes, but they didn't post the next one. And I knew last week that next week there was going to be Damian Lillard and Giannis using the other ones. So I didn't buy the ones everyone was buying. I bought the leftover ones. And wouldn't you know it, they announced the challenge this week, and those have all doubled. So you kind of have to take some time, be pragmatic, do your research, find something that is going to work for you instead of just, all right, I like Luka, I'm going to buy some Luka. Think about the thought process there. Take advantage of news. You wake up, no Kawhi? All right, Donovan Mitchell. It's probably been a little easier for him to move forward. And we're only talking about like buying a $6 moment that turns into 10, right? Don't need much for that to happen. So that's the kind of thought process that I'd be looking at with cards as well, right? Donovan Mitchell's one. Also, from Bleecker, right? The people who have been spending money, been in this hobby for a long time, a common refrain I heard last night when we talked about, hey, where do you see the hobby going? What do you see with this? Where are we going to go? So many people have said this to me. I have too many cards. I love cards. I love the hobby. I love when people talk about cards as art and as like an art alternative, an art type of asset. But I have too many, and I want to get my collection down to those pieces that I really love. And they balance that out against like, but then something comes up and it's available. It might not be exactly the right one. Do I pull the trigger on it? And having that patience and that willpower to not pull the trigger on it. I heard that from probably a half dozen people last night. So what can we?
I understand it,
please.
but I want that to be understood that is a emotional statement, not a rational statement. I'll explain why. I'm going to go and look at Rips's collection. Rips consistently uses small trade chips to trade up and color up.
Yep.
So here's someone who's a very, very refined collector, very specific collector. He has a ton of cards. He thinks of those bottom tier cards, those cards that people say I have too many of, not as now they're waste and I need to get rid of them to go here. He thinks of them as trade chips. And I think that's a big thing. I think we could learn from some of the people that were in the hobby the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, but I think that's what they're all saying. I think what they're all
I don't think
saying
so.
now is that
I think they're saying I need to flood the market with these.
No, I think what they were saying was in the past I like to stack these things. I like to buy these guys. I was going to buy when I got into the hobby and I was new into the hobby. I was like, let me buy something of everybody I like. Let me buy a John Morant. Let me buy this. Let me buy that. And I think people's tastes change over time. And people, of course, it's easy to have the taste change when some of the stuff you bought has gone down in value.
Right.
It's also a risk appetite thing, right? We've talked about this. Those higher cards, those Grail type of cards, those cards that they're probably talking about, those are the ones that, they probably have a little more price protection on the downside. You would think they're not going to drop
1,000%. So because they could have stacked Luka Prisms. When Luka Prisms went from 500 to 2,200, I want the biggest stack of them.
Yep.
But when they're going down, I'm like, man, I wish I just had one Luka Blue. Obviously.
Yep. Yeah.
We are babying people too much, right? Cage. You guys out there, you guys know my tone. I'm usually a facilitator. I like Cage do talking to guests. But I just think we're babying people too much in the hobby, as if like losing is no longer an acceptable part of investing in anything. You lost your bet. Keep moving forward. Use the trade chips you have and color up.
Well, I think that's what people are trying to do. I think I don't want to call it losing, right? I think people are learning. And that's what I got from it last night. You know what I mean? I think people realize that they're, what worked before is probably not going to work now. And they have to, they have to switch up their strategy a little bit. And, that's like anything, right? If you're new into something, that's the deal. Guys, listen, I don't know where the tone's coming from Handsome here, but I'll tell you from my own perspective, I have plenty of cards that I took L's on. Plenty of cards. I mean, I'm going to get back PSA returns with Modern, with Tyler Hero. I'm still waiting on it. When those come back, I might as well just throw them right into the garbage. I don't even want to open up the reveal.
They're not even going to cover my grading fee.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not even going to cover the cost of grading it. So,
I don't understand. My tone is, I think it's like the bigger participation trophy culture. When things are going well, it's like amazing. But when things go a little bit south and you have to show patience, resilience, and grit, it turns to whining. And what I see all over social media is a lot of whining about the demise of the hobby, not learning. If it was learning, I agree with that. I think that's brilliant. What I am noticing, I'm paying attention to, maybe I'm wrong, is a bit more complaining and whining. And I urge people to understand this is how markets work. Use it to learn, because if you do, the next time you're going to see this pattern, you're going to be like, wow, I saw this. I'm more prepared. I'm going to have success. I love this quote, Cage. When a person with money meets a person with experience, the one with experience ends up with money, and the one with money leaves with experience. I think that's a great way to sum up what's going on. I urge people to take that to heart. Let's keep moving. Bucks, Nets, KD.
Dude, I listen. I want to wrap this up because I gotta go. But I'm impressed by KD. I'm impressed by him, and you know me, I crap on KD almost as much as I crap on LeBron. Like I don't think KD is that great of a player. He put the thing on his back last night. I mean, I would have loved it if he hit that last free throw and got 50 points. But I mean, that was like a historic, 40 point, 15, 10, only 4 of them done in the playoffs kind of thing. Missed his playoff record by 1. But it wasn't just how, the totals, because you could have those totals in a game and not control the game. It was fourth quarter when they were making their run to go ahead. He took the shots. And some of those, there was a three-pointer. He got the ball with like 3 seconds left. It was off balance, and he canned it. I mean, in the defender's eye. And I mean, I was watching it with Ian, and I'm like, dude, he's really good. Like, he is really good. And I'll give him credit. I mean, that was good. We'll see what happens. I'd love to see, the rest of the team healthy. Harden, I mean, Holiday was just beating Harden around the corner so easily. You could tell Harden is hobbled. I think that was a huge game.
Did the Nets lose it or the Bucks? Did the Bucks lose it or the Nets won it?
I think that the Nets played better than they are in the second half, and the Bucks played worse. I think the Bucks played better than they were in the first half, and the Nets played worse than they were. And things happen like that in the NBA. Teams make runs. I think the Nets' run yesterday came at a time where the Bucks just weren't playing well.
I know, Cage, you got to go. We have a double header episode today. I think you're going to love the guest episode. Luca Nation is with P. Ryan. It's going to be fun. We're going to air that tomorrow on Thursday.
Bucks, you know what the Bucks look like for a time during the fourth quarter there? They look like deer in headlights. They just did.
I'll wrap this with one statement. They did look like a deer in the headlights. Nice little pun.
Thank you. Well, wrap it. Go ahead. What are you going to wrap
Coach, just with Coach Buckholzer, two things. When you see that James Harden's hobbled, how do you not attack him all game? And second thing is, with the last 2 minutes, right? You remember this when you saw Shaq play. Shaq could have 40 and 15, but the last 2 minutes, they're not going to give him the ball because he can't make free throws. Right. You can't have Giannis run your offense 100%. The last 2 minutes. 100%. That's why you brought Drew Holiday in. That's why you brought Chris Middleton in. That's all.
By the way, can you be a superstar then? And I love Shaq, but that was one of the things that I hated about his game, that they could just hack a Shaq at the end there, and that was no good. But I'm going to leave it with this, guys. Andrew had a great quote there. I'm going to leave you with my own, and you've heard me say this a million times, right? And we said it in February a lot, and we're going to say it again now, I think, during the summer a lot. It was my Warren Buffett quote, my favorite one, right, where he says, be fearful when other people are being greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. February, people were being greedy, and that was the time to be fearful. That was the time to be afraid, and you saw what happened. Right now, people are running for the hills. Right now, people are being fearful. So I think it's a time where if you have that money on the side, in a very short order, there will be some legitimate assets, some good assets, that if people are being fearful and running from them and selling them too cheap, it'll be your time to be greedy.
That's another one. Good luck, brother.
Thanks, everybody.